All right. Well, hey friends, Steph here. Tonight's topic is one of the most important I've ever shared. This is the number one thing sabotaging weight loss. Okay. My name's Stephanie. Again, this is Be the Boss, Be Well. And I come here every week to share information with you that I hope helps impact your healthy living. And everything, everything that I teach and talk about, all of it will come back to this one thing. Everything we do, all of the little tips and tricks, all of the small actions that we take are intended to ultimately do what I'm going to be talking about today. And then I'm just going to share one of those with you later. I want you to think of it like this: trying to heal your body while still fueling inflammation is like trying to rebuild a house while someone follows you around with a blowtorch. Okay? You can have the best plan, the best supplements, the best workouts. But if the fire isn't out, you're not going to see lasting progress, okay? And what is that fire? Well, I just mentioned it. That fire is chronic inflammation. Let's go back in time. 100 years ago, people mostly died from things like infections and accidents, tuberculosis, plagues, gangrene, right, from damage, right? But today over 74% of global deaths are now from non-communicable diseases of chronic inflammation. You may have heard of some of these. These are things like heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and other neurological diseases, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and gout, even depression, and most of the highly prevalent cancers. All right, the list is actually longer than that. These conditions actually used to be fairly rare, but now 60% of the United States adults have at least one of these, and 42% have two. So the real enemy isn't just sugar or fat or carbohydrates or any of those things. The root driver is actually inflammation. So I'm going to try to make this science a bit simple for you right now, okay? Every day, your cells create little sparks. These are called free radicals. Normal life, breathing, eating, moving, expending energy whatsoever actually normally does this. Normally, our body also has built-in firefighters. These are our antioxidants, and they are there to put those sparks out. But when modern life adds more sparks, poor sleep, ultra-processed food, pollution, chronic stress, the firefighters can't keep up. That is called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress triggers inflammation, which drives disease, weight gain, and fatigue. Your body actually runs on an ancient operating system. We're not getting updates all the time like our phone. So for thousands of years, our body has expected sunlight by day, darkness at night, simple food, clean air, and microbes that live mostly in our gut and our soil. Modern add-ons break things in four ways, okay? And these four things have really become prevalent in the last 100 years. All right, because of the types of things creating inflammation. So these sparks and this inflammation causing, it happens in four ways, okay? One way is overload, right? We simply have way more exposure than our biology can safely process, whether it's ultra processed foods, constant snacking, nighttime light, um, you know, pollution, particles, forever chemicals, pesticides, off-gassing of your cookware when you preheat a non-iron or non-stainless steel pan, right? Things like that. There's lots of things that cause that overload, right? We're getting it from everywhere though. So it's not like you're just getting overload from one of those things. It's all over our environment. We're getting overload from everywhere. The second is mimicry. Okay, that's copycats. Molecules, copycat molecules that look like natural signals and jam up the normal biochemical processes in our body. These are called endocrine disrupting chemicals. Some are called obesogens, but ultimately they bind to different things in our body, places in our body, to either act like something it isn't or block a process from happening that is supposed to happen. Sometimes these things are medications, like GLP-1 agonists. The Ozempic, for example, is a chemical that was originally derived from, I believe it was Gila monster venom, and it turns on or activates or acts like, GLP-1 and causes that to release in our body, but unnaturally. So it gets it kind of stuck in the on position. That's not how our body was meant to work. But then there are things that do that all over the place. There are so many pesticides that do that, right? The other is leak or weak barriers. Our gut, our airway, and our skin barriers get irritated, but our gut, from our mouth to our rear end, is actually outside of our body. So, and our lungs are out, the inside of our lungs are outside of our body. Our skin is outside of our body. And all of these things are designed to keep things that would harm us from being able to get in. So when these get irritated and damaged, our immune system reacts and stays in the on position. The fourth thing that happens is draining and depletion. So we burn through our antioxidants and repair tools and cofactors and vitamins like magnesium, minerals like magnesium that are important for all of the processes in our body, like stress management and managing sugar. When we're overloading, our body gets drained and depleted because we're trying to keep up with the overload and neutralize it. And so we get depleted. So when all four of these things show up, oxidative stress rises, right? We get so many sparks, it turns into a fire. And our immune system cleanup crew, our firefighters, the inflammation, like that never clocks out, and chronic conditions creep in, right? We don't, and it takes time. So we don't usually attribute our everyday exposures to something that's going to happen 10, 15, 20 years from now. But what's happening is it's all building up over time. Eventually, we get into late middle age, old age, and all of these things start failing and happening, and we think it's just old age, but it isn't. It's a lifetime of building damage. So there are 8 major categories of these modern sparks that I want to share with you, but we're only going to go into one of them today. And I'm going to just list them in the least impactful to the most impactful, but all of them contribute to this. Number 8, so the least impactful, is cookware, kitchen, and indoor combustion. If you've got a gas stove and you're not venting to the outside, that is a problem. And then cookware can off gas. And so there's little particulate matter that gets in the air that is actually really irritating to our lungs in those conditions. Medications that can affect our gut health, our microbiome, and when that barrier is weakened, we end up with systemic inflammation. We end up with a fire of oxidative stress and inflammation, and antioxidants can't keep up and can't, and we end up with this chronic inflammation and battle in our body. The medications that do that are things like antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs at high use, like ibuprofen, and some of the ones that are prescribed, naproxen as well. That would be Aleve, Advil, those types of things. Birth control pills, and antibiotics. I think I said antibiotics. Proton pump inhibitors is another one. And a lot of people are on those. The sixth is pesticides and industrial agricultural inputs, right? The things that are getting added to our soils and our waters and all over our food that cause inflammation. They didn't exist 100 more years ago. Our body doesn't know what to do with these things, but they actually, atrazine is one of the pesticides that is actually involved in mimicry. It mimics endocrine hormones that are sex hormones. So it typically depresses testosterone in boys and men, and causes other issues as well. That's just one example. With household and personal products. So those also have endocrine disruptors, frequently fragrance, parabens, and other compounds in them, fragrance especially, endocrine disruptors, and volatile compound exposure. So VOCs, those small aerosolized compounds that are chemicals that are breathed in and cause oxidative stress. The fourth, now we're getting to these are all bigger and bigger impacts on us. Fats and farming changes. So how we farm our food and the kinds of fats we're eating more and more today disrupt a very important polyunsaturated fatty acid balance in our body called the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. It's supposed to be anywhere from 2-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 to 4-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. So always a little more omega-6 than a little 3, but unfortunately, we're running around with anywhere from 16 to 30 times more of omega-6, and that is more of an inflammatory fat. But part of the problem isn't even just that omega balance, it's that this large amount of polyunsaturated fats in general, these are very unstable fats and they oxidize very quickly, and they're being used almost everywhere in our food supply and in cooking in restaurants and in most packaged goods. And they're very inflammatory for that reason. They cause oxidative stress in our body. Number 3, light exposure that are non-circadian light exposure. So darkness when we should be in the day, light when it should be dark. And also, just not sleeping because of our lifestyles, that we put sleep off and we don't take that time to rest. And that is a time when our body heals. A lot of those firefighters can do their job and a lot of repair gets done during that time, and we're not getting that. Number 2, cause air pollution and microplastics is a big deal. And then finally, the number one cause of inflammation in our bodies is actually ultra processed foods, the way we process foods and packaged foods. It is the number one cause, which means if it's the number one cause, it is the biggest impact on 74% of the world global death today, because it is one of the underlying prime causes of these diseases of chronic inflammation. All right. So yeah, I said it wasn't just sugar or carbs or fat or whatever. There's a lot of things impacting our weight and our inflammation. All of them add up, but food is the one you can absolutely change immediately. There's some other ones you can too, but I'm going to tell you why I want to start with the food, not only because it's the number one, but because it's efficient. So that blowtorch for most of us of that food is ultra processed foods. They combine the unholy trinity of sugar, refined grains, and seed oils, and refined those seed oil fats that are highly oxidized and damaged, refined grains that break down into sugar very quickly in our body and are often contaminated with pesticides, and sugar itself. We have way more sugar in our life than the American Heart Association would recommend. For women, it is about 6 little packs of sugar a day, or 6 teaspoons of sugar, which is about 24 grams of sugar a day. For men, it's 9 teaspoons or 36 grams of sugar. And we are so far beyond that, most of us. And then, of course, refined carbohydrates are just hidden forms of that sugar. So together, we're getting a lot of it. So why are ultra processed foods so harmful? Well, they overstimulate your brain, right? They actually hijack our normal biofeedback mechanisms during the whole digestion and eating process, and they spike our cravings, and then we can't stop at one, right? Remember that Lay's commercial? You can't eat just one, right? But you can't, and they're engineered that way. I love the book by Michael Moss called Sugar, Salt, Fat, and he actually is talking about the food manufacturers and interviews them, and they specifically say that they do studies looking for that bliss point, the point at which people eat the most of their junk food, and then that's the formulation that they take to market. And it isn't anything about health. All these ultra processed foods fuel hidden inflammation. They keep that scale stuck, they keep your joints achy, and they keep your energy low. That oxidative stress turns the energy factories in your cells, those little mitochondria, from an energy production state to an inflammatory state. They're turned off. They're not producing energy for you. These foods deplete nutrients, right? So the calories might be high. You might feel like you're eating food, but your body is starving for the repair tools, for the building blocks, for the proteins it needs, for the fiber it needs to feed your gut, for the vitamins and minerals that it needs in order for all of the biochemical processes in your body to actually happen, to be able to make your hormones, to be able to make your neurotransmitters, to help you think, right? They deplete you of those things. So the good news is you don't need to give up everything. The fastest wins really just come from one or two swaps, okay? So I'm going to finish up here in just a second, and I'm just going to give you a couple of quick wins and a little trick, okay? So I want to tell you a quick label scan trick, how to spot your blowtorch on the label of a box, okay? If sugar or a seed oil is in one of the first three ingredients, that is fuel for inflammation. Okay, so look at the first three ingredients. If it's any kind of sugar, and there are over 130 names for sugar, okay, so if it's maltodextrin or dextrose, or any kind of modified corn starches, anything like that, any starches, obviously sugar and molasses, any kind of juice, any kind of concentrate, any kind of syrup, corn syrup, any of those things. Fructose, evaporated grape juice is also just sugar. It's just crystallized sugar. It doesn't have to be cane sugar to be sugar. So yeah, evaporated cane juice, evaporated grape juice, evaporated apple juice, it's all sugar, okay? So, and then seed oils. What are seed oils? Those are soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, rapeseed oil, which is also canola, and a couple of others, but those are the main ones, right? Cottonseed oil, but you don't see that. That's usually just hidden in vegetable oil. It's very, very bad for us. So then don't get that food, right? Find one that doesn't have those. Try to find a better option. Pick one go-to snack, okay? I want you to pick one go-to snack from your pantry. I want you to flip the label and look at it. I want you to check to see what the label is with those top three ingredients, and then maybe swap it for a cleaner option. And if you don't know what cleaner option there is out there, ask me. Comment right here. Say, hey, I found this and it has these in the first three ingredients. Do you have a better option? Do you recommend a better option? I offer pantry audits that go through everything in your kitchen, and I give you a full write-up of all of the healthy swaps. That's the fastest way to reduce inflammation in your life. But you can do this with the items in your own pantry. And then a bonus action. If you eat out a lot, or if you go out eating out, don't get the fried food. All fried food in restaurants are fried in damaging oxidized oils, mostly soybean oil, sometimes canola oil, unless you ask them to cook your food in olive oil. And they're not going to deep fry anything in olive oil. So make sure you also get plenty of fresh veggies at that restaurant, because those are where your antioxidants are, okay? Ask for olive oil and vinegar for your salad, okay? So this one swap will lower the volume in that bucket of inflammation and just reduce that load, okay? You just keep doing this over and over and reduce that load. And this helps your body respond to all your other good choices, okay? So my challenge for you this week is to stop the harm and identify one blowtorch food you can swap. Just simple, easy. And if you want me to show you exactly how to do this without giving up the foods you love and, having you learn 20 new recipes to replace all the stuff you can't eat anymore, that's not necessary. I want you to save your seat for my October 7th workshop. Lose the weight, not the food. All right. There's a bigger name, but that's basically what it's about. It's interactive. It comes with your own short one-on-one plan session that is based on what you've come up with in the workshop yourself. That one-on-one session by itself is valued at $60. Forget the whole rest of the workshop and the handouts and resources that you get in addition to that time with me. Right now, it's only $33 for that workshop. And I'll put the link in the comments. Spots are limited, so I want you to grab yours early. And I want you to remember this. You cannot heal if the fire is still burning. Right? That's going to block everything. We got to get, this is the very first step. I've got a series of teachings coming up, and they're going to be sequential, but this is the first step. So by stopping this harm, especially in your food, you're going to create space for your body to finally repair, restore, and release that weight. And when you start with your food, if you go with organic foods, for example, you're going to get rid of a lot of those pesticides and chemicals that are endocrine disrupting. So that's one of the items on the list. If you start using, different oils in your cooking, and you're not eating those ultra processed foods with the seed oils, well, you're going to reduce the number of those bad fats that are causing inflammation in your body. You're going to reduce that omega-6 amount in your body, right? You're going to get more whole food nutrients and more fiber in your life if you make better swaps. So I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want you to share your one swap in the comments. I want us to inspire each other. And I did say, so if you want to stay, feel free to stay. I'm going to give a little bonus add-on right now. I asked a question in the group earlier. What's a healthy food that, or that you wanted to believe is healthy, but you're not sure of? And we got some comments in there. We had tortilla chips. They just have 3 ingredients. Somebody else mentioned bananas. Somebody else mentioned cheese. So cheese, I would say, if it's a grass-fed or a sheep's milk or goat's milk cheese, these are the better options. If it's an aged cheese, it's even better. Yes, they have fats, but generally speaking, grass-fed, which, or sheep's milk or goat's milk, especially imported from Greece, these are all going to be naturally fed animals. They won't, if they're not being fed a whole bunch of grains that have these fats in it and they're given their normal ancestral diet, then their fatty acid ratio is actually quite favorable compared to conventionally farmed cheese. Tortilla chips. Yes, they have just 3 ingredients. But if you look at the total carbohydrates compared to the amount of fiber, that's really what you want to look at. And also you want to see what kind of oil they were cooked in. So you want to see, did it have a seed oil in there? Does it have a lot of fiber? Are there fiber in there? Because if you multiply fiber times 4 and then compare that to the total carbohydrates, you want the number to be the same or greater than the total carbohydrates. That means that fiber is 25% of those total carbohydrates. And that's going to really slow down that glycemic index and reduce inflammation in your body. That also being said, you want it to be organic because corn is often sprayed with those pesticides that are one of those inflammatory factors that we talked about. So it's better to get a non-GMO organic tortilla chip to avoid some of those other things and try to find them made in a better oil like avocado oil. So that's what I would say as far as tortilla chips are concerned. You can get good options out there. And then bananas. Bananas are low fiber and higher sugar. And so while they're natural and they have some vitamins and minerals in them. They can be a little, they can be unhelpful for some people if they eat them and find, I have a big, huge glycemic response and I have weight to lose around my middle. I'm already insulin resistant. These are all things I talk about in my custom fit wellness program. And some other workshops that'll be coming up as well. A better option, a lot of people think they need bananas for the potassium. A better option is an avocado. Avocado has healthy fats. There's very little sugar in it. It's very high fiber. It has a massive amount of more potassium than a banana. And has mostly monounsaturated fats, so very healthy fat profile. And lots of benefit in there. So, you know, you can actually make an avocado pudding with like cacao powder and avocado. And it actually makes a pretty good chocolate pudding. So you can still get some dessert out of there. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. And I think I'm done. I don't know that I have any comments on today. So I will leave you guys. I will leave you guys there. All right. Take care. Have a nice night.